"Hi there," I said to the sales rep. "I'm interested in your Skyshade 4000 model." "Excellent choice," the rep chirped. "Heavy-duty frame, high-density polyethylene fabric. What's the application? Park? School?" Residential backyard," I replied. A pause. "Residential? Sir, the Skyshade 4000 is a 400-square-foot commercial structure. It requires significant concrete footings for the posts." "That's fine," I said breezily. "How about color? Do you have it in sunburst orange?" Another pause. We do. It's quite popular for water parks." "Perfect," I said. "Send me a quote, including installation if possible." It all started with the sun. Our backyard is great. Decent size, nice lawn, mostly, room for the grill. But the patio? It's a concrete slab positioned with laser-like precision to receive the full, brutal force of the afternoon sun from roughly 1 p.m. until sunset. Sitting out there after lunch in July is less relaxing al fresco experience and more's low-roasting human sacrifice. "We need shade," I declared to my wife, Jen, one sweltering Saturday afternoon, retreating indoors after attempting to read for 5 minutes before my eyeballs started to bake. "No kidding," she agreed, fanning herself. "An umbrella just doesn't cut it. It's still like sitting on the surface of Mercury out there." And so, the dream was born. A pergola. Not some ostentatious monstrosity, just a classic, handsome wooden pergola, maybe 12 feet by 14 feet, covering the main part of the patio. Cedar, maybe, or redwood. Something sturdy, something attractive. I envisioned climbing vines, maybe some hanging baskets. Definitely some cool Edison bulb string lights for evening ambiance. It would define the space, make it usable, add actual value beyond just potential third-degree burn zone. We spent hours online, looking at designs, kits, custom builds. We got excited. We imagined cool drinks under dappled sunlight, comfortable evening dinners without needing headlamps. It was a reasonable dream, a sensible dream, a dream destined to be crushed on the altar of the Oak Knoll Meadows Homeowners Association Architectural Review Committee. Now, I'm not an idiot. I live in an HOA neighborhood. I know the drill. You don't just build things, you submit things. You fill out forms in triplicate. You provide samples. You await judgment from on high, usually delivered via passive-aggressive letter. So I resolved to do it by the book. No guerrilla pergola construction for me. I found a design I loved online. Classic lines, sturdy posts, nothing weird. I even hired a local draftsman to create proper scaled drawings showing dimensions, setbacks from property lines, the whole 9 yards. I chose a standard, readily available cedar wood. I picked out a stain color, natural cedar. About as inoffensive as you can get. I got a detailed quote from Patio Perfect Pergolas, a local company with good reviews. Bob, the owner, came out, looked at the plans, looked at the space. "Yep, standard build," he said cheerfully. "Nice design. Should look great here. Just need that HOA approval, and we can get you on the schedule." Armed with Bob's quote, the draftsman's plans, the wood specs, and a physical sample of the natural cedar stain carefully glued to a piece of cardboard, I compiled my ARC submission packet. It was thicker than my college thesis. I filled out the ARC application form, detailing every bolt and beam. I triple-checked the setback measurements against the HOA plot map. I wrote a polite cover letter extolling the virtues of shade and aesthetic enhancement. Feeling like I was submitting plans for a new international airport, I hand-delivered the packet to the HOA management company's office, dropping it into the official ARC submission slot. The 30-day countdown began. What could possibly go wrong? It was a pergola, a nice, normal wooden pergola. The next few weeks were filled with impatient optimism. I pictured the finished pergola, imagined where the string lights would hang. Jen and I started looking at outdoor furniture suitable for shaded lounging. Then the subtle signs started. I saw Mr. Abernathy, the chairman of the ARC, walking his poodle past my house, pausing a little too long, squinting at my backyard. Abernathy is a retired something or other. He likes to imply architect, but I suspect accountant, who treats the HOA, CC, and Rs like they were handed down on stone tablets. He lives 3 streets over, but patrols the entire neighborhood like it's his personal fiefdom, tutting at improperly edged lawns and non-regulation mailbox flags. A neighbor, Carol, yes, that Carol, from previous suburban skirmishes and other people's stories, apparently she moved, mentioned casually, "Oh, Mr. Abernathy was asking me if you were planning any major exterior modifications." Sounded quite concerned. Concerned? About a pergola? Unease began to replace optimism. I checked the HOA portal daily. Application status, under review. 30 days came and went. Nothing. On day 35, I sent a polite email inquiry. On day 40, I got the response. Not an approval, not a request for clarification, an official letter. The envelope felt thin, which I naively took as a good sign. Maybe just a quick approval note? I tore it open. Oak Knoll Meadows, Homeowners Association, Architectural Review Committee, Decision Notice, Property, 45 Oak Knoll Drive, Samuel Miller. Application, Proposed Pergola Structure, Submitted Date. Dear Mr. Miller, the Architectural Review Committee, ARC, has completed its review of your submitted application for a proposed pergola structure. After careful consideration of the submitted plans, materials, and overall visual impact in relation to established community guidelines and aesthetic standards, the ARC has voted to deny the application. Reason for denial. The proposed structure is deemed inconsistent with the prevailing architectural character of the Oak Knoll Meadows community. Specific concerns include the overall massing and scale relative to the lot size, the choice of wood material finish, natural cedar, and the potential for the structure to create an undesirable visual precedent. The committee suggests exploring alternative, less intrusive options for shade, such as market umbrellas or retractable awnings, which may be more in keeping with the neighborhood's character. You may appeal this decision in writing within 15 days. Sincerely, the Oak Knoll Meadows RC. Reginald Abernathy III, Chairperson. I read it 3 times. Denied, inconsistent, undesirable visual precedent. Massing and scale? It was a 12x14 pergola, not the Taj Mahal, and they suggested an umbrella? Jen! I bellowed, waving the letter like a battle standard. They denied it! They denied the pergola! Jen read the letter, her expression mirroring my own disbelief and outrage. Massing and scale? Inconsistent with architectural character? What character? We live in a sea of identical beige vinyl-sided boxes. A wooden pergola is the character. And he suggests an umbrella, I fumed. An umbrella, like that's a permanent solution. Abernathy just doesn't like it, that's all this is. It's completely arbitrary. You have to appeal, Sam, Jen said, her voice tight with anger. You have to go talk to him, make him explain exactly which bylaw a standard cedar pergola violates. Oh, I will, I growled. Abernathy hasn't heard the last of this. Or my pergola. Appealing meant requesting time at the next ARC meeting, held, naturally, in the beige clubhouse conference room. I prepared meticulously. I brought the plans again. I brought photos of at least 10 nearly identical pergolas in nearby, equally beige neighborhoods. I brought samples of even more neutral stain colors. The meeting consisted of me, Abernathy, and 2 other ARC members who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else and deferred to Abernathy on everything. Mr. Abernathy, I began, trying to keep my tone respectful despite wanting to throttle him with his own ascot. Yes, he wore an ascot. I'm here to appeal the denial of my pergola application. The reasons cited were subjective, inconsistent character, massing, and scale. Could you please elaborate on specifically how this standard 12x14 cedar pergola violates the community's architectural character? Abernathy peered at my plans over his half-moon glasses. "Mr. Miller," he intoned, steepling his fingers, "it's not merely about the dimensions, although the proposed structure does feel somewhat dominant. For your lot size. My lot size is perfectly average. It's about the essence, the vernacular. This," he tapped my plan dismissively, "feels rustic. Almost Californian. Oak Knoll Meadows has more of a subdued mid-Atlantic sensibility." Subdued mid-Atlantic sensibility? We lived in generic suburbia built in the late 90s. I held up my photos. "Mr. Abernathy, these pergolas are all within a 5-mile radius. They look pretty similar to mine." He waved them away. "Different communities, different standards. Furthermore, the committee felt the natural cedar finish, while seemingly innocuous, lacked the depth required to harmonize with the approved neutral palettes." "I brought other samples," I said desperately, holding up swatches of beige bliss and taupe tranquility wood stains. "I'll paint it beige if I have to." Abernathy shuddered slightly. No, paint is entirely inappropriate for a structure of this nature. It's the overall presence, Mr. Miller. It simply doesn't fit. The committee's decision stands." He looked pointedly at his watch. "Now, if there's nothing further, we have Mrs. Gable's application for a non-regulation bird bath to review." I was dismissed, beaten by massing and vernacular and Abernathy's iron grip on acceptable levels of backyard enjoyment. I walked out of there seething. He didn't want a dominant structure. He thought my pergola didn't fit. Fine, challenge accepted. That night, I didn't sleep. I downloaded the full Oak Knoll Meadows Covenants, Conditions and Restrictions, CC and Rs, a 150-page document of soul-crushing legalese and arbitrary rules. I made coffee, I read, and reread. I focused on the sections Abernathy vaguely alluded to: architectural control, exterior modifications, approved structures. Section 12 was key: permanent structures. It defined them as anything with a fixed foundation and/or a permanent non-fabric roof, requiring detailed ARC approval, adherence to specific material lists, no mention of pergolas being inherently forbidden, interestingly, and meeting setback requirements. This was clearly the section they used, however subjectively, to deny my pergola. But then I found Section 19. Temporary structures, awnings, patios, and shade devices. The language here was much looser. It talked about seasonal items, umbrellas, retractable awnings. It mentioned that support posts for awnings or other shade devices might need approval if anchored permanently, but the device itself seemed subject to fewer restrictions, mainly safety and not encroaching on common areas or easements. A pergola, with its posts sunk in concrete and its fixed wooden slat roof, even if not solid, was undeniably a permanent structure under their definition. But what about a canopy? A large one, yes, but with a fabric roof, supported by posts bolted onto concrete footings, which might need a permit but maybe not full ARC design approval. Could a giant semi-permanent canopy qualify as a shade device under Section 19, thereby bypassing Abernathy's subjective massing and vernacular objections under Section 12? The loophole wasn't just visible, it was enormous. Big enough, perhaps, to drive a very large canopy through. I burst into the living room where Jen was trying to watch a movie. "Jen, I found it! The answer!" I waved my printout of the CC and Rs. "Found what?" she asked warily. "A reason to sue the HOA?" "Better. A way to get shade and annoy Abernathy. Look!" I explained the distinction between Section 12, permanent structures denied, and Section 19, shade devices vague. A pergola has a fixed roof structure, see? Permanent. But a canopy? Fabric roof, it's arguably just a shade device, like a giant, non-retractable awning. Jen looked skeptical. So, instead of a nice wooden pergola, you want to put up… what? One of those flimsy pop-up things? No, I grinned. Think bigger. Think commercial grade. Like the giant tension fabric canopies they have over outdoor seating at restaurants. Huge. Maybe 20x20. Provides way more shade than the pergola would have. Jen stared at me. A 20-foot square commercial canopy? In our backyard? Sam, that will look insane. It'll be bigger than the patio. Exactly, I crowed. It makes a statement. And Abernathy denied the pergola based on massing and scale, right? This is way bigger. But if it falls under Section 19, his arguments about permanent structure aesthetics don't apply. He might hate it, but he might not have grounds to deny it based on the rules as written. The sheer audacity, the beautiful bureaucratic jujitsu of it started to dawn on her. A slow smile spread across her face. You think it would actually work? That he couldn't stop it? There's only one way to find out, I said, already reaching for my laptop. Time to go canopy shopping. My search quickly moved past standard residential awnings and patio covers. I needed something substantial. Something imposing. I found websites selling heavy-duty shade structures, tension fabric canopies, cantilevered umbrellas the size of small cars. I zeroed in on commercial-grade, 4-post tension fabric canopies. Square or hexagonal shapes, high UV-rated fabric, powder-coated steel posts. These things were designed for playgrounds, car dealerships, outdoor event spaces. They were built to withstand wind and weather. They were also, visually, about as subtle as a marching band. I found a model, the Skyshade 4000 inches, a 20x20 square canopy, perfect size to cover the entire patio and then some. Now, the color. Did I go with a tasteful HOA-friendly beige to try and sneak it past? No. Where was the fun in that? They denied my natural cedar. They deserved something bolder. How about electric turquoise? Or maybe sunburst orange? Yes, sunburst orange. A cheerful, defiant beacon of shade. I called the supplier, a company called Commercial Shade Solutions, based out of Arizona. Hi there, I said to the sales rep. I'm interested in your Skyshade 4000 model. Excellent choice, the rep chirped. Heavy-duty frame, high-density polyethylene fabric. What's the application? Park? School? Residential backyard? I replied. A pause. Residential, sir. The Skyshade 4000 is a 400-square-foot commercial structure. It requires significant concrete footings for the posts. That's fine, I said breezily. How about color? Do you have it in sunburst orange? Another pause. We do. It's quite popular for water parks. Perfect, I said. Send me a quote, including installation, if possible. I could almost hear him shaking his head through the phone. Commercial Shade Solutions offered installation, but their crews were based hundreds of miles away. They recommended finding a local contractor experienced with commercial awnings or playground equipment. I called a few places. Most were confused. A 20x20 tension canopy? In a backyard? Why? Finally, I found Shade Masters, Inc. Their owner, Gus, a no-nonsense guy with leathery skin from years working in the sun, agreed to come out and look. Gus surveyed my patio, looked at the Skyshade 4000 spec sheet I'd printed, and whistled. Hoo boy, that's a lot of canopy, my friend. You planning on hosting rock concerts back here? Just really dislike sunburns, I said non-committally. Can you install it? Install it? Sure, he said, pacing out the post locations. But these posts need serious footings. We're talking 4 feet deep, Maybe more, couple yards of concrete total. Gonna need a permit from the city for footings that size, most likely. And your HOA? They cool with you putting up something that looks like a displaced gas station awning? The HOA, I said carefully, has specific rules regarding permanent structures versus shade devices. This, I tapped the spec sheet, is arguably a shade device. Gus grinned, understanding dawning in his eyes. Ah, one of those situations. Gotcha. He looked towards my neighbor's house, then back at me. Okay, we can dig the footings, get them inspected if needed, pour the concrete. Once that's cured, we come back, erect the posts, stretch the big orange sail. Won't be cheap. I figured. I sighed. Let's do it. The first phase footing installation caused an immediate stir. Gus's crew arrived with an auger truck and digging equipment. The noise echoed through the neighborhood. 4 deep, imposing holes appeared near the corners of my patio. Mr. Abernathy materialized almost instantly, clipboard in hand. "Miller," he barked, marching into my backyard uninvited, a recurring theme with HOA officials, apparently. "What is the meaning of this extensive excavation? You do not have approval for any new construction." "Morning, Reginald," I said calmly, sipping my coffee. "Just installing some deep anchors for, oversized landscape lighting fixtures. You know, for ambiance." Abernathy squinted at the 4-foot-deep holes. "Landscape lighting?" he repeated suspiciously. "Those look like foundation footings." "Heavy-duty lighting," I elaborated vaguely. "Wind-resistant models." He clearly didn't believe me, but couldn't prove anything yet. He made some notes on his clipboard and retreated, muttering about unapproved soil displacement. The concrete truck arrived later that day, filling the holes with industrial-strength mix. Phase 1 complete. The literal groundwork for my spiteful shade was laid. A week later, after the concrete had fully cured, Gus and the Shademaster's crew returned. This was the main event. They unloaded 4 massive, thick-walled steel posts, powder-coated in a neutral gray. I decided to let the fabric be the star. Using a small crane lift, they carefully bolted these towering posts onto the embedded anchors in the concrete footings. My patio now looked like it was preparing for invasion. Then came the fabric. Unrolled from a huge tube, the sunburst orange canopy was breathtaking and enormous. It took 4 guys to carefully lift it, attach the corners to the posts, and begin the tensioning process, using heavy-duty turnbuckles and stainless steel cables. Slowly, the giant orange sail rose into the air, stretching taut, creating a vast, flat roof of brilliant color high above my patio. It dwarfed the patio. It dominated the backyard. It cast a shadow that reached halfway across my lawn. It was, objectively, completely out of scale with my modest suburban house. It was perfect. The crew finished tightening the last turnbuckle, cleaned up their gear, and gave me a final, slightly awed look. "She's up," Gus said, wiping his brow. "Solid as a rock. Good luck with the HOA, buddy." They packed up and left. Jen and I stood under the canopy. The shade was deep, cool, and extensive. The orange fabric cast a warm, slightly surreal glow over everything. It was like being inside a giant, very sturdy creamsicle. "Well," Jen said, tilting her head back to look up at the expanse of orange, "it's definitely shade." We didn't have to wait long for the official review. Abernathy must have had spies reporting back, because his car screeched to a halt out front barely 30 minutes after Gus's truck pulled away. He stormed into my backyard, HOA rulebook already open, his face a dangerous shade of puce that clashed horribly with the sunburst orange. "Miller!" he sputtered, stopping dead under the edge of the canopy and staring upwards as if witnessing an alien landing. "What is this?" "Afternoon, Reginald," I said pleasantly, gesturing around. "Like it?" It's my new shade device. Provides excellent UV protection. Shade device? He choked out. This is a carport, a circus tent, a monstrosity. It's 10 times larger than the pergola we denied. It completely violates. He started flipping frantically through his rulebook, muttering about square footage and height restrictions. Ah, I interrupted gently. But you see, Reginald, you're looking at Section 12, permanent structures. This, I swept my arm upwards, clearly falls under Section 19. Temporary structures, awnings, patios, and shade devices. Note the lack of a fixed roof? Fabric top. Supported by posts, yes, but Section 19 only requires approval for the anchoring of posts, not the device itself, provided it doesn't impede common areas. I smiled benignly. I believe I'm fully compliant with the rules as written. Abernathy stared at the rulebook. He stared up at the giant orange canopy. He looked back at the rulebook. A low growl escaped his throat. He knew I had him. On a technicality. A giant, orange, flapping technicality. This is an abuse, he finally stammered. A perversion of the bylaws. The spirit of the rules. Ah, but Reginald, I said, still smiling. You denied my pergola based on the letter of the rules, or rather, your subjective interpretation of vague aesthetic guidelines. Surely you wouldn't want to apply the rules inconsistently. He looked like he was about to spontaneously combust. Abernathy didn't physically combust, but he came close. He threatened immediate, massive fines for violating the spirit of the rules. He threatened to call the city code enforcement office about unpermitted structures. He threatened to convene an emergency board meeting to amend the bylaws immediately. You do that, Reginald, I said calmly. In the meantime, I'll be enjoying my ample, technically compliant shade. He did call the city. A bored-looking code enforcement officer came out a few days later. He looked at the canopy, looked at the footings, for which Gus had pulled the correct permit, scratched his head, consulted his own rulebook, and found nothing specifically prohibiting a large, post-supported fabric canopy in a residential zone. As long as setbacks were met, they were. Looks like it's an HOA issue, mostly, the officer told a fuming Abernathy before leaving. Long as the footings were permitted and it's structurally sound, the city doesn't much care what color your, big orange roof thing is. The police were never called. There was no immediate danger, just aesthetic outrage. Abernathy was left sputtering, forced to retreat and plan his next move within the slow-moving gears of HOA procedure. So we lived under the big orange, and it was interesting. The shade was phenomenal. We ate dinner outside every night. Reading on the patio was now possible, but it was also a lot. The sheer size of it felt slightly oppressive sometimes. The sunburst orange fabric, while defiant, wasn't exactly calming. It flapped noisily in high winds, making us worry about the tension cables. Rain pooled slightly in the center before draining off the edges. And cleaning off bird droppings and leaves required a very long pole and considerable effort. The HOA, under Abernathy's relentless pressure, tried everything. They sent violation notices for unapproved color palette, citing the fabric. They sent notices for visual nuisance. They sent notices claiming the posts constituted a fence and violated fence height restrictions. My lawyer friend drafted polite responses, citing the relevant bylaws, or lack thereof, for each one. They began the lengthy process of trying to amend the bylaws to explicitly regulate shade canopies over 100 square feet, but that required votes and committees and took months. Neighborhood opinion remained divided. Some thought it was hilarious. Others thought it was an eyesore. Most just seemed resigned to the new, slightly circus-like atmosphere on Maple Lane. Months passed. The canopy stayed. Abernathy's attempts to force its removal through existing bylaws failed. The bylaw amendment process stalled in committee. Living under it, though, we got used to the shade, but the sheer presence of the thing started to wear on us. It blocked winter sun from the kitchen window. The orange glow, initially amusing, became slightly grating. It was frankly too damn big. My act of defiance had worked, but now I was stuck with it. Eventually, almost a year after the canopy went up, I approached the HOA, now with a slightly chastened Abernathy still on the ARC, but no longer chair, with a proposal. What if I took down the giant orange canopy, and what if, in return, they approved a pergola? Specifically, the original 12x14 cedar pergola plan they had initially denied. After much negotiation, back and forth, and assurances that I would use a very neutral stain color this time, they agreed. The desire to get rid of the giant orange monstrosity outweighed Abernathy's lingering objections to massing and scale. So Gus and the Shademasters came back, dismantled the Skyshade 4000, and hauled it away. I think Gus secretly wanted it for his own backyard. And then Bob from Patio Perfect Pergolas finally got to build my original design. It looks great. Cedar, natural stain, provides lovely dappled shade, fits the space perfectly. It's exactly what I wanted all along. Was it worth the year-long battle? The expense, the absurdity of living under a commercial-grade orange canopy? Logically, no. It was the dumbest, most expensive way possible to get a simple pergola approved. But sitting out here now, under the reasonable, aesthetically pleasing shade of my hard-won pergola, looking across at Abernathy's house, I have to admit, there's a certain satisfaction. I didn't just get my shade, I got it by navigating the labyrinthine absurdity of their own rules. I beat them at their own game. And while my backyard no longer looks like a circus is in town, the legend of the giant orange canopy lives on. Sometimes you don't need brute force. Sometimes all you need is a careful reading of the bylaws and a willingness to look completely ridiculous for a year.